Hey guys, it's AC. Welcome to my house. And today we're going to learn more about financial freedom, leaving your day job, and what it takes to do that in your 30s. Our guest today is someone I'm very excited about. We're going to learn so much from Tom Brickman, also known as the Frugal Gay 11 online. He's we're going to get his story, but the, he's one of those people who's not afraid to invest out of state in a different city. And I know one of the number one complaints I get all the time is, my city's too expensive to invest in real estate. Well, Tom's going to share with you how he does it and how you can too. He's acquired 18 doors over the last 18 years. That could be your goal. One door, one property a year. And you could be retired by the age of 39. So we're going to get his story. And when real estate investors talk about doors, they may say, I've got two doors and one property. That's a duplex. Sometimes they'll say, I've got 10 properties, but you don't know if those are 10 single families or not. So a lot of times when the metric is doors, how many doors you have. And so he scaled up over the years in different types of properties, and we'll discuss that. I'm excited to hear he bought a property off eBay. And to me, that was exciting to see. I've never ventured down the eBay route for houses. So want to get that story out of him. And if you have questions, feel free to follow along and ask questions live on the House of AC YouTube or Facebook group. These videos stream live, also on Twitch and Twitter. Ask your questions and we'll be happy to answer them. If you want to watch them later, go to Linktree/the House of AC, and you can follow us along and ask your questions after the fact. I'll be happy to answer your questions not live. So tune in. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, Jasmine Mortgage Team. So if you're looking to purchase any real estate in 48 states, any state besides New York or Hawaii, Jasmine can get it done. Jasmine does my own personal loans. Probably done over 15 different mortgages with her over the years, refinances, new purchase, primary purchase, real estate investments. She can do it all. Her and her team are amazing. So I highly recommend checking out Jasmine Mortgage Team. It only takes 15 minutes to fill out an online form to see what money is available for you, because you can't do this. Well, you can do this without money. It helps to have money. See how many tools you have in your tool belt, your financial tool belt, to get things done. That being said, we're going to bring in to the live stream Tom Brickman at the Frugal Gay 11. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Hello. How are you?
Good. So we came across each other on social media. I like what you're posting. You know your stuff. You're got engaging comments and commentary on what's happening in the real estate world. First, I want to congratulate you that we're 60 days in to you leaving your 9-to-5 job. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I've got to ask, was that you chose to leave at 60 days ago, or did the 9-to-5 choose you to leave?
No, I tried to leave in 2019. I had tons of self-doubt. I definitely should have just left in 2019. I hung on for 2 more painful years. And in December, I gave my notice and finished on January 7th. So I made that choice.
What kind of work were you doing before?
It's a retail type job. So I started at $32,000 back in 2006 with this company, and I stayed with them for just over 15 years and ended a little bit below $80,000 a year.
Wow. So you were able to acquire 18 doors off $80,000 salary. That's toward the tail end of your career, obviously not the entire career. This is going to be very exciting to hear how you were able to accomplish that. Well, let's maybe start from the beginning. Where were you in your career and what made you buy your first real estate investment?
So I was 21 and I lived in Toledo, Ohio. I was going to college, and I bought a multifamily my senior year. I worked at the Gap full time, which did tuition reimbursement. So I was able to go to school without accruing a bunch of student loans. Right. And senior year, I was tired of paying rent. And at the time I was only paying $375, but I just didn't want to pay rent anymore. And I bought a multifamily property. It was a duplex. It was $90,000. I had purchased Gap stock while I worked there. I cashed in all my Gap stock and that was my $9,000 down payment. And I lived in the upstairs. I rented out the downstairs. My mortgage with insurance and tax was $738. I rented the downstairs for $600, so I was living for $138. So I was happy. I was ahead.
I love that. That's how I got started. This is if you're young and you're buying your first property, this is going to financially change your life. This is a method called house hacking, where you buy your multifamily, you got a duplex, it sounds like, and you live in one unit, have your tenant pay the majority of your living expenses, because 50% of people's paychecks typically go to paying their rent or their mortgage payment. And now that's, wow, $100 a month, then you're able to save up money for that next property, right?
Absolutely.
So, but where did you get that thought to even do this? Because when I talk to 21-year-olds in college, that they don't have real estate on their mind at all.
My father was he was a police officer, and I remember in second grade, he picked up a rental property, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to go over and pick up rent from them and go over and paint with them and go over and do repairs. So he kind of, without telling me, set me up, but that set the tone for, I want to own real estate. I can build wealth through real estate. And, part of the frugal gay is I've just been super frugal through school. I've been flipping. I've been doing whatever I can to make money and grow my wealth. So that was kind of where it started, though, was with my father.
And is he still investing in real estate?
He is, but we have very different paths. He's mostly in Ohio and Florida, and I'm in Texas and a different area of Ohio. And he and I invest in different types of real estate. He's more conservative. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Well, most parents are. The older you get a little bit more conservative. I get that. So you bought this property in Toledo, and in your mind, when you bought this property, was it, I'm going to live in Toledo forever, or let me just acquire a rental property with 10% down payment, $9,000 of gap stock, and I'll move out and rent it or sell it one day?
I still own it. I didn't know that I'd still own it 18 years later, but it's paid off and it's a great property for me. And I've done everything over the past 18 years. So it's a good windows and roof and furnace and all that. I took a job right as soon as I graduated from college that moved me to Cleveland. I bought a second property in Cleveland right off the bat, and I shouldn't have. That was a money pit for me. Okay. Because I didn't have a team. And during college, I formed a team in Toledo of just a couple people that knew how to do windows and all that kind of HVAC. And then in Cleveland, I didn't have that, but I took a job there, and that job did not work out. And I ended up taking a job with a company in Texas who said, I'm going to move you here for 6 months and we'll move you back to Ohio. And that was like 16, 17 years ago. So I've been in Texas since. So
did they renege on moving you back, or you just loved it?
I mean, it was a couple opportunities came up, and I was just like, nah, it's not the right fit. And I went really hard on real estate. I got rid of my credit card debt, which I had accrued some between college and taking this job in Texas. And I took a second job. I worked at Ross. It's a clothing store, and just did it just to pay off debt. And I did it 2 days a week, and it took me a year to get out of debt. And then I just went really hard, and it was 2009. So everything was the bottom of the barrel, the cheapest it's going to be. And I picked up a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo and rented out 1 room with a bathroom. And that covered my whole mortgage and my HOA dues, and just kind of started going crazy after 2009.
I love this story because a lot of people say, I need to have a 6-figure job. I need to work in tech. I need to, and you're doing all this in retail. And the foresight is amazing, because, people are probably listening to this and be like, oh, great. That's great, Tom. The market was low. Of course it was easy for you, but I promise you, I was investing in that period, and my friends were, I was trying to get them to invest, and it's more difficult to talk people into investing, because it's like, no, everything's crashing. Why would I buy real estate now? Like the same people who say, right now, I'm not going to buy real estate because prices are high. I was like, you said the same thing, 10 years ago when the prices were low. Like when is going to be the perfect conditions for you to buy real estate? So why were you not freaking out? Like, it was because of your success in Toledo?
I was not freaking out because I was in a similar situation as I was when I was in Toledo, making very little money, and I can have someone live in this other room and pay my whole mortgage for me. Why am I not going to do it? And I just, it was a very small down payment. It was a very small loan. And that's when I started to build my team in Texas, because I found someone that was working for the HOA doing siding outside. I'm like, hey, how much to do this? And just started growing and growing and growing. I had a friend at work who did tile. So we went to town on clearance tile in there. I used every penny of my bonus from work, and it wasn't a big bonus. It was maybe $4,000, but $4,000 went really far back in 2009. So we made that place look awesome by the time I sold it in 2011.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So then, what was your goal? Were you, well, I guess, what was driving you? Like, did you have a goal to financially retire in your 30s? Did you have a goal to have a certain number of doors, certain amount of cash flow, or were you just sort of like, oh, this opportunity is good, and let's do another one and another one? Yeah.
I mean, my goal that I was working towards back then was I want to be a millionaire by 30, and I hit that at 31.
Nice.
And I don't want to pay to live where I'm living. I want someone else to pay my mortgage for me. And I just scaled over time. I looked at all the stuff that all the investors were ignoring, and I bought cheap condos. I bought, $14,000 condo, $20,000 condo. And then I've traded those into great houses now. Over the years, I've, even just last year, I sold a $15,000 condo from 2013, and it sold for $97,000 last year, and then I turned that into 2 multifamily properties.
Right.
So,
right. Would you use the 1031 exchange strategy?
Absolutely.
Would you mind explaining that to people who might not know what that is? Yeah,
for sure. So with that property, I used a company out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and they basically get the proceeds of the sale. So they got the $97,000 at closing, and I exchanged that $97,000 into 2 other properties, actually in Ohio, because I invested in Toledo and in Dallas, Texas. So, and this was in Texas, and I never got any of the money. They held it. I located 2 properties during my 45-day period, and used that plus money of my own to buy these 2 properties in Ohio, and therefore I didn't have to pay any sort of capital gains tax on it.
Yes.
And total, it was like $750 a property, I think. So I think
Oh, wow.
it was like, it was like $1,500 to do a like-kind exchange, and the amount of I just rolled that into another property, basically.
Right. So just to those listening, if you touch the money, you have to pay taxes on it. But if you have a qualified intermediary hold the money, which is what Tom is referring to here, then you're not touching the money, and you're just doing a like-kind exchange, 1031 like-kind exchange. You're exchanging 1 property for 2. You could exchange. I did that one. I sold a duplex, and I turned it into 3 duplexes or 3 quads. So it's just like-kind. You're just exchanging real estate for real estate in some fashion. So you sold something for 97. What was the grand total of the 2 multifamilies you exchanged it for?
One was 35,000, and one was like 47,000. So I had some of my own cash into those. Once I know I went over 97,000 with everything, and then the $35,000 one I actually spent a year fixing, and I actually put 100,000 into it now. Just to get it to 100%. But that's been the prices in 2020 when I bought it, and the prices in 2021 when I fixed it, were so skewed that my pricing on that was way off compared to things that I've done in the past. But that was
what are they renting for?
So the upstairs is going to be my first short-term rental, and that one can go from 91 to 126 a night. That one should be set in April. It's 99% done, and then the downstairs is rented for 800.
Wow. So it sounds like you only operate in cash, and you don't get the mortgages or anything like that?
I have some, and I've become more comfortable borrowing cash now, because I have some really good properties in Texas that I bought early on, and they've just gone from a $200,000 property is now a $450,000 property in Texas. So yes, I've
Right.
borrowed against some of my properties.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how I got scale really quickly. Is I was very very frugal. I have a book called $1,000,000 by 30. I did it by eating ramen noodles every day, and no debt whatsoever. That's how I was raised, and it got me through my 20s. But then I realized, to level up to what every rich person that I've interviewed and talked to and friends with, like billionaires, they have mortgages on their house, and it's like I just learned that when you can use leverage as a tool, you understand it. But I
Right.
felt like I had to go through that boot camp of being very frugal to be very comfortable with debt. Like I knew I could control my expenses. I could control my spending. I had self control. I had to go through that, and then I'm like, okay, I trust myself with debt. So it sounds like maybe you've done the same exercises there.
100%. Yes.
So how are you? Well, have we gotten to the property you bought on eBay yet?
I mean, we can bounce back to that. That was a 2017 purchase, and it was auctions.com fulfilled through eBay. And basically, I was in my office at my 9 to 5 board, and I had the cash in my checking account, and it happened so quick. It was like a Thursday morning, and I saw it there, and I started bidding. And I'm like, hey, I started texting my friends in Ohio, can you drive by this? Can you drive by this? And one of my friends said, yeah, I'll go buy it on lunch. And
Yeah.
by the time she drove by it, I had already won it, and I just started feverishly bidding. And I ended up winning it at $13,500.
Wow.
I was super familiar with the zip code. I was not familiar with the street, and
Yeah.
because I had lived in the zip code, so I felt comfortable bidding. And when she drove by, she sent pictures and said, it's a little rough, but I think you can make it work. And at the time, I was dating my husband, and I sent him up, and I'm like, I'm getting the electric on, I'm getting the water on. You can stay in it and as we fix it, and get me a punch list of what we're going to do to it. And right when I took ownership, there were bullet holes in the windows. It was a much rougher property than what I thought it was, until he got there and started sending me the pictures. And he's like, look, there's bullets wedged in this door frame. Look, there's this. So it was, and my father, again being conservative, went out and met my husband out there, and he's like, I just lose the 13,500 and walk from this one. He's like, this
No
is
way.
not gonna, yeah, he's like, this is not gonna be the one for you. And I ignored him. And total investment into that, I had $38,000. Once I fixed everything, did windows, did roof,
So,
did
so
furnace.
$25,000 renovation on top of the 13,000. Okay.
Yes. And just this past summer, I ended up doing an owner finance, and I sold it to the tenant that had been in it for 2 years. It was the nicest one on the street. So when I put it up for rent, everybody wanted to rent it.
Yeah.
I probably did a little bit too much improvement to it, but it was a learning process. And to me, that 38,000 was a small investment when you look at the big picture. And I was able to turn him into an owner. He pays me every month instead of the bank, because he couldn't get traditional financing. He should be able to get traditional financing by the end of next year. So I'm taking the first 2 years of it for him, and it worked out. It could have been a horror story, but it in general worked out.
So let's talk numbers. $38,000 all in. What were you renting that for?
$795.
That's insane. Like this is why I just want everyone to watch this episode, because no one knows that you can have a livable house for $38,000. People are just they just can't fathom that, like that exists. And sure, this was 2 years ago, but you just sold it to this guy. What was the sales price that you sold it for?
54,000. And so his payment's 738 now. So it's actually a little bit less, but he has to pay his own insurance and tax and whatnot.
Yeah, so 54. So people are like, well, that's great. 38,000 was 2 years ago. Guys, it's 54,000 this year, right? Like you just sold it.
Right.
So you can go find $54,000 houses. I bought 50 homes between $30,000 and $50,000 in the last 2 years. Like they are out there. They're livable. the $37,000 house, not livable, but you put what $20,000 into it, or
Yeah.
if I got those numbers right. But yeah, I love this. I think it's great. And then you got creative. You sold it to the tenant. Seller note, owner financing, which basically means you're going to be the bank because they can't go to the bank. They can't go to a mortgage
Right.
lender like YasminTeam.com. And you say, I'll be the note owner. And the benefits in it for you are what?
I get paid every month without having to do any kind of work to it. It's just me collecting every time that Cash App goes off when he sends us payment, that's it. And I mean, I'm paying on the interest that I earn every month. But it's really, there's no maintenance calls. There's nothing to do with it now. So it's awesome.
Headache free. He makes the payments, and if he doesn't make the payments, you get your house back. You foreclose and get your house back, right? Or you get creative. You renegotiate the terms of the mortgage, or you put it up for sale, and whatever. Like you're only involved if there's a problem, kind of thing. But you've had him as a tenant. You know that this is a guy who pays on time, has his act together. And that guy knows he likes the house. Like he doesn't want to lose his house. He owns it now. Like,
now that he owns it, he's doing improvements all the time. And I mean, he's taken ownership. And even before we closed, he started mowing the lawn, and he's excited to have a house that's his.
That's awesome. And you give someone an opportunity to get on the property ladder who might not have had it otherwise, at least earlier,
Definitely.
Now this is a great, is this your first time doing any sort of seller financing?
No, I've done it 3 times, and actually, 3 times, and I've had one that went bad, and I had to foreclose on, and that, and then this is the second time, and it's going really well. The third time, and it's going really well. The second time went flawless. I financed him for a year. After a year, he got financing and bought it out. So I've done this 3 times.
So is this a strategy you go into when you buy the property, or is it just happens as you go to the tenants and say, hey, I'm about to sell. Would you like to buy it first? Or what's your thought process, and how do you have those conversations?
It's not when I buy. It's more of happens as I go. And if I have a good long-term tenant and they don't want to stay, or they don't want rent to go up, I'm like, hey, I could sell you this. This is what I want to do with the property. And sometimes people take advantage of it and become homeowners, and sometimes people move out and I sell them outright or re-rent them. But this, like you said, has given people who traditionally couldn't get financing ways to get financed and become home. Like my tenant who bought that property last year, he's in his 50s. He's never been a homeowner before, and that gave him an opportunity to become a homeowner.
Yeah. And so just people listening, if you do a seller note, you can make up whatever terms you want. It doesn't have to be 30-year fixed. It doesn't have to be, low interest rates. Can you mind sharing what of these 3 deals, sort of the terms that you've agreed with?
So that one last year is a 10-year note. The other one was a 15-year and a 20. I do it to get it as close to where they're comfortable with their payments. And then usually I do some sort of buyout after you have to get financing within 2 years. You have to get financing within 5 years. And some have been able to, fix their credit or pay off debt and get that financing. And some have done refinances where they just keep paying me, and that's worked out. This is the only note I'm currently carrying of the 3 that I've done.
Got it. So there's a 3-year balloon, 5-year balloon, and that basically means, hey, you're paying as if it's a 10-year mortgage. You're paying as if it's a 15-year mortgage. I just don't want to be your lender in 3 years. That's called the 3-year balloon. When that 3 years is due, you have to have refinanced with another more traditional lender, and then I step away at that point. So what is the one, if you don't mind, I feel like there's learning lessons and learning from the mistakes and the things that go wrong more so than learning everything that goes right. Can you walk us through what happened with the one that you ended up having to foreclose on and how that all worked?
That one was actually the house that I bought in Cleveland. I originally tried to do owner financing because I couldn't sell it outright at the time. The values just fell so much. I bought it in 2005. In 2009, 2010, they just dwindled down to nothing. I finally got it to where I owed less than what I could sell it for. I did owner financing. I took too small of a down payment, And that was part of it. A lot of times when you do a 5 or a 10% down payment, the people are a little bit more invested than when you do $1,000, $2,000 down payment.
Right.
And this was not all coordinated by me. This was just done for me. And I just kind of, I took too small of a down payment, and they honestly, once they gave that down payment, they were out of money. So that first month, they just did not have money for their house payment. And it just, after, I think that they inched it along for a month or two. And after 2 or 3 months, we had to foreclose and get them out. And it was an expensive process.
Yeah, I bet. So what do you collect now as the minimum down payment?
I don't do anything below 5%. So if it's $100,000 house, it's, $5,000, and that gets people, you're putting your $5,000 into this property. It shows that they're vested into it. And that's kind of my minimum. And then with the lower ticket houses, I would go, 10% or something like that.
And what interest rates are you charging?
Anywhere. I mean, I think that I've gone from 5 to 8%. I don't usually go. I've seen some owner financing now that it's so hard to find houses at 12 or 13%, and I've never done anything in that range. But mine have ranged, because I think my first mortgage was 6.875, and people don't realize, who didn't buy houses back in the early 2000s, how far we've come since then. So I've kind of kept it. I think the highest I've done was like 8.5.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My first mortgage in 2001, I think it was 7.5%, and I was like high-fiving my friends that I got such a good rate. And my parents always tell me, like, well, their first house, they were paying like 14%. So we are in a good time, even though interest rates are going up and people are freaking out. It's like, yeah, it's gone up to 3.5. Like we're still in a great time to acquire and purchase real estate.
Definitely.
Now, this is also a good strategy. So if you're listening and you don't maybe have the funds to buy real estate and you're renting, have a conversation with your landlord. Tom might be your landlord and he might sell you a property. Like these, just being aware that this is an option, and that your landlord may be very open to a situation where they're carrying the seller financing. It goes a long way. I talk about taking on debt and getting creative earlier, and also my 50 home portfolio, that was through a seller note. The seller was selling, it was a portfolio of 50 homes, and I bought chunks of it over time. I bought 15 and then 30, and then, but he couldn't sell it. They were all sort of in rough shape and mixed. Some were, but they all had tenants in it, and they're all in the $30,000-$50,000 range. So it wasn't something that a traditional mortgage company was excited about. So the only way he could sell it was through seller financing. And the terms he gave me was 10% down, 15-year note, 7% interest rate. And the whole properties were cash flowing. And I bought $1 million worth of property for $100,000. Like that was insane. Like, I thought I got the deal of the century, and he thought he got the deal of the century. Like it was like this worked out great. He just wanted to get rid of him. He was retiring. His kids didn't want anything to do with him. And I was like, yeah, man, I can leverage, because usually if you buy investment property, you're 20% down, sometimes 25% down. So I thought I got a home run. He got a home run, and yeah, it worked out for everyone. I love that strategy. So. Yeah. Are there any other creative sort of things that you're doing? Because it sounds like every story you have is off the beaten path, and I love it. Yeah.
I don't do direct mail, but I do hand out cards, and I do resale. That's how I've bought a lot of properties, and I'll pass out cards out at the flea market while I'm out there. And there was a gentleman.
What would your card say?
Just well, now they say the frugal gay, but this was just a real estate investor. We buy homes, that type of, just real basic. You can get them on Vistaprint for $20.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy. And I just pass them out, but now I have frugal gay cards. But I had passed one out. I used to buy nail polish from this guy, and he's like, my mother-in-law just passed. Do you want to look at this house? And the house was hoarded. It was hoarded up to the ceiling. It was dumpsters and dumpsters. And he's like, this is what we owe on it. This is what we'd need. and I was like, I'll help you get rid of it, but I don't think this is the one for me.
Yeah.
And I took in the first investor, and they're like, I can give you this much. And when they did that, I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm just going to do this myself. And I worked out a deal, and I got it, and I closed on it. I had to do all cash because no bank would loan on this property. It was completely
Right.
uninhabitable. And I spent weekend after weekend emptying it, and I'd get a dumpster delivered on Friday, and they'd pick it up on Monday, and I emptied it, took 11 40-yard dumpsters. But it's one of my, I cash flow $600 a month on this property now.
What'd you buy it for?
I bought it for 140, and I
Yeah.
put about 80 into it,
Nice.
and it just appraised over 400,000.
Wow. Yeah.
I know, and I was ready to walk away from it. And if I didn't buy this nail polish at this place out at a flea market, I would have never had this deal. He had people trying to buy it all the time, and it was just, we had formed a rapport. I bought stuff from
Yeah.
him every week. I checked on him. We'd bring him coffee. And when you do that and you're memorable, I had my housekeeper bring me she's like, my aunt wants to move. Do you want this house? And I went and I looked at it, and I'm like, no, it's not the right one for me. And she's like, okay, well, help get this on Zillow and list it and do this. And I helped her, and she got a contract on it. And then the inspection came back bad from the person who was under contract. So then she brought me the inspection. She's like, this is everything that's wrong with it. What will you pay for it?
Nice.
And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing this one too. So just being able to have a conversation. I bought a multifamily in December. I started a conversation in August with a neighbor of the house that I bought the year prior. And we were talking about Italian food. And I'm like, we fix up houses, we do this, we do that. I'm at this Italian restaurant. You want me to get you something? She's like, no, I'm good. But 2 months later, she's like, I want to move to Florida and get out of Ohio. Do you want this house? So I brought her an offer, and it made sense for her. So I think that's it. Being able to hand someone a card and have a conversation about nothing, about nail polish, about Italian food. And that makes you memorable, and that makes you to where somebody wants to do business with you, and she contacted me in October. We put it under contract. She was finishing up an eviction. And as soon as the eviction finished, we closed 2 days after the eviction closed. And I helped her with the eviction.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So basically you're sort of, how's the weather? What do you do? You're like, I'm a real estate investor. Here's my card. Like, is there a sales pitch, or are you going to strangers?
I mean, I have an elevator pitch, but I really don't, I'm not giving it out at the flea market because I'm out there buying nail polish. I'm not giving the elevator pitch to the lady. I was fixing the house 2 doors down, and she was pulling out garbage at the same time, and that's how we started talking. And I asked her, she had owned it for 20 years. Her son lived in the downstairs. The upstairs didn't pay rent. And we just started a conversation while we were pulling out garbage. And then I offered her it was just one of those just simple, hey, I'm going to this Italian place. Do you want anything? And that I don't have a pitch though. I mean, it's because they've all come organically over the years.
I love the strategy because people think like, oh, I want to get a cheap, expensive home. I'm going to join this country club. I'm going to, drive a fancy car, whatever, go where the rich people are. But you're saying, no, go to the flea market. And you're obviously frugal shopping at flea markets, which I love. Like, there's always treasures there. And, but the true treasure is your business card turning up houses from the folks shopping there, the vendors there. And those guys make sense because I promise you, everyone is part of a country club. They've got 20 real estate agents that they're close with, whether they want it or not. But probably some of the flea market, they might not have anyone in their life or in their circle that's knows anything about real estate.
Right. So it's worked out well. I've sourced merchandise out at the flea market as well for my flips. I've had pallets of tile and returned light fixtures and all that. So it's kind of a part of my journey.
That's all. So you're 15. What you said, you were 15 years in career. You recently posted on Twitter sort of the 10 things, a list of things that you said you wish you would have. You basically wish you would have retired early, earlier, or you was invested in real estate earlier, or combination of the two, or things that you knew along the way? What's yeah.
I think it was the 8 things that I wish I would have known because it would have made me leave earlier. And
Okay.
some of it is, your work friends are your work friends. And right now, I've kind of lost touch with some of them, and some of them are real friends, but some of them aren't real friends. And then building a circle of people that are doing the same thing as you. A lot of people at work believe in just that in that job, and that's fine. But I've been able to build a networking of a bunch of people who are doing real estate, who are doing the same things that I'm doing, and get how you can build wealth on a small salary by buying these doors, collecting rent, paying down your mortgage. And that was, those are a couple of the things. There were several things. I mean, I worked in a retail type job where I gave up every weekend and holiday. I can never get back those birthdays. I can never get back those holidays to spend with family and friends.
Right.
So those are some of the things that I covered, and things that I think about now, 60 days out, and I regret not leaving sooner. And it was at door number 5 when I actually started making money. And there's so many people who get on door 1 or door 2, and they're barely making it, and then they're on door 3, and they, again, not making it. There were a million different sacrifices made to get to door 5, to door 7, to door 10, to door 18 now.
Right.
And at door 5 is when I'm like, wow, I actually made money this year. This is actually starting to pay off what I'm doing. This is actually working. And I wish I could have seen the vision back then, because now 60 days out, I see that I limited myself by doing that job because I couldn't take on, I tried for years trying to buy this property from the city. And I think if I didn't have that 9 to 5, I could have worked out a deal with the city and really gotten that deal done. But it was, I had to commit a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money, and I had the money, I didn't have the time for that certain property. But you limit yourself sometimes with this 9 to 5 and busy all the time and have to do this every weekend or every holiday. So that was just a reflection of where I am 60 days out.
That's awesome. And how did you navigate doing this at your day job? Were you open that you were a real estate investor? You're looking for properties. Did you keep it to yourself? Did it create weird dynamics in the workplace?
Peers on the same level as me, always open. My boss could care less because the only thing that mattered was the company. But especially at the beginning at door 3, I relied on people at work, and I'm like, oh, you fix this? Oh, maybe you could come and look at this for me. And I built up a little team that way. And now that I have a really solid team, a lot of them came from that job. So I used it as a way to network and to talk to people and ask opinions and say, would you do this? Would you spend this money? Would you try this? And, when I bought that first condo in 2009, if I didn't have friends at work that did tile and did this kind of stuff, I wouldn't have been able to make it look like it did, so I could sell it for so much in 2011 and keep scaling that way. So I was open, but I didn't have support from the higher ups. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, that's funny. So walk me through this conversation where you said, I'm retiring to your boss.
It's a painful conversation that took place back in December, and my boss doesn't really know anything about the frugal gay or my real estate, but knows that I do it, but has no interest in any of that. So it was a painful conversation, and there was a comment that I just sat there and cringed. He's like, I don't know what you're going to do to generate income. What's your plan? And I'm like, we're not talking about this. We need to just get through this day and get through my 2-week notice and get over the hump and get out of here. But I will say this, having that type of boss pushed me harder, just made me want to get it even more, made me sit in bed while I'm watching Netflix and list merchandise on eBay so I could continue to build the side hustle business. I'm exhausted after working, but then I'll come home and I'll list 20 things on eBay to grow that business. So that type of boss, that was the benefit of that type of boss, because it pushed me to go further.
Yeah, that's what gave me confidence when I was in my early 20s investing in real estate a little bit was I had some early traction. I got in the newspaper for this young guy who's investing in real estate. Barbara Corcoran bought one of my properties, and then like that's when my bosses started at my day job started like coming to me asking questions like, "Wait, what are you doing? And how are you doing this? Because we know how much we're paying you." And it was like $55,000, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing something that's right, because I in some ways I respected that, but to me, everyone that was above me was just super rich, right? But now
Right.
that I know is that they're spending everything, or they're not investing at all. They live for the paycheck, and you're not going to get rich that way. Like long term wealth, or you're not going to be rich with time, with freedom, and early retirement. So kudos to you for figuring that out.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So, what's your plan now are you trying to acquire more properties? Are you able to do that without your day job income, or?
Absolutely. I had a hard money lender DM me, and they were kind of annoyed. I didn't really want to talk about borrowing money because I have my money set up for the rest of 2022 for at least 2 more properties. And they're like, well, let's just talk. You don't need to spend all your cash on this. And I ended up taking the call, but, I think 2 more properties this year, 2 more doors. We'll see if it's a multifamily or if it's 2 single families in the Ohio market. And beyond that, I'm looking to build the Frugal Gay, which is why I started it. I just started it a year ago. It's just a social media presence on Twitter and on Instagram. But I'm hoping to use that, and I'm already seeing it. I took investors up to Toledo, Ohio, in January, and we did a tour of town, and they ended up putting in an offer on something. They're going to live in one unit, rent out the other, similar to how I started.
Yeah.
Because where can you live for free? I mean, they got it under contract for $107,000. The other unit rents for $800. It's going to cover their 30-year note with tax and insurance. So all they're going to have to pay is water. And they're like, where can we live for free? So that type of coaching, and that's where I'm going with it. And then what I'm hoping to do over time is trade up some of these into different types of real estate. I have one commercial space right now. Maybe I go more towards that or that direction. But like we were talking about before we started recording, you got to grow it with partners, with others, and we'll see. Because right now it's just me on my 18 doors.
Yeah. What's the commercial space that you have?
It's in Toledo, Ohio, and it was an abandoned pizza shop, and now it is a barber shop, and a social media marketing is on one side of it. So it was an abandoned pizza shop for many years. They were collecting less than I think it was like $8,000 a year for the whole 4 units. And in 2020, we collected over $30,000 in rent from the 4 units. It's crazy when people just kind of discard, and it had great bones. Right. And we poured some money into it, but it was poorly listed. And now we collect a lot of money from it every month because it's really nice, and people see it on the corner, and it's a good spot.
So you live in Dallas, and you're doing this remotely. And how involved is your husband in sort of this your real estate ventures?
So he's behind the scenes, like he's literally building cabinets in the other room right now when he's not working his 9 to 5. So he is the behind the scenes, and he will go and help with any, right now we're working on a plumbing issue. So you met a plumber over at a property, and he likes all that. He does not like to talk to the tenants. He does not like to, he's pretty antisocial when it comes to the interaction, but he'll help with the behind the scenes stuff to make me successful.
What's the drive between Dallas, Texas and Toledo?
17 hours, and I did it quite a few times last year. I'm flying up here in a few weeks, but I did it several times last year. It's a 17-hour drive.
So you alluded to it before. You've got a good team there. I assume you've got a local property manager, the person collecting rents and everything, or how are you able to do this 17 hours away?
I had a property manager, and I just switched it over March 1st to a live-in. So one of my doors is my property manager now. For the
tenant.
So they are a live-in. And that's a change because I went with a company for so many years. But having a live-in is a very different dynamic and very nice at the same time, because they can run over and meet someone and let someone in. And these were things that cost every single time I'd send someone somewhere.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes, especially if I'm going to pick up 2 more doors this year. We'll see where that goes with the live-in property manager.
So so typically this situation, that tenant gets a discounted rent. What sort of discount did you give the tenant?
So it's 10% of our, so they get, their rent is 800, and I have 10% of my door collection is 8,000 in Ohio. So they live rent free.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
then they're
So
managing all your stuff in Ohio and they live for free.
yes.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a great deal for that tenant. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing that I pay the gas and the water. The only thing that they pay is their own electric. But we'll see as I get the 2 additional doors, and as I have 1 door under renovation there right now, how it goes. So this is kind of a hybrid, and because I'm also doing a short-term rental up there in Ohio.
Yeah.
I bought a property on the water. So that's why I had to get this person in place, so they can do changeovers when we do short-term rentals through Airbnb or
Right,
that.
right. Yeah, that could go either way. Because to me, it's I've offered that before in the past, and I'm like, you have the best deal in the world. You live rent free, right? You just have to do these open some doors, right? Or just open the door for the plumber, or collect these rent checks. Like it's super easy. Some people are everything you need under the dream sort of live-in tenant property manager, and then others were just like they saw an opportunity, and find out is like apartments were supposed to be rented for $1,000 a month. He was renting them for like $1,200 a month and just keeping the extra $200, and like making up repairs for his friends to do on properties and charging more kind of thing. It was like, man, you had a good thing, and you just I set you up so well, and you just threw it away. And who knows where he is now? Like living in the streets, probably, because he can't get his act together and just trying to take advantage of things. But
For sure.
yeah, but yeah, that so again, that's another out of the box way of thinking that you're doing things. You're not doing it by the book, and you're still successful at it. And that's also like I have similar conversation with new investors where like, oh, what book do I need to read on landlording and property managing and all this stuff? And I was like, just think about every landlord you've ever had in your life. They've all done it differently. Like they all collected rent differently. They all had different lease terms. They all had different handshake agreements. There is no system that's you have to do it this way. Like whatever
Right.
works for you, whatever works for your tenant, feel free to create your own systems. Like it. There's tried and true ways of doing it where like the professional companies do it, and there's reasons for it, and you feel free to follow their method or make up your own. Like you're the boss, and you're doing that. You're doing that financing. You're doing that with property managing, finding deals. It's amazing to hear your story, and I love it because it's not costing you money. It's saving you money. You living up to your name as the frugal gay, for sure. Like it's really interesting to see, and where your career takes you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So where can people follow you online and learn more about you and hear all these great things that you're doing?
I am most active on Twitter at the Frugal Gay 11, and same on Instagram. I do one-on-one coachings. I do that type of thing. So you can just most active on Twitter. That's the best spot. You can definitely message me on Instagram also.
How does your coaching work?
So I do I'll do a 15-minute, and I'll be honest with you if I think it's a fit or if I think it's not. And a lot of times I go with, there's a lot of people that want to be rich, but a lot of people don't want to do any of the work to get there. They just want the money to come. And there are so many different ways that there's definitely ways to do it a lot easier than it took me over the past 18 years. So I'll do a 15-minute session always with anyone. And I do a one-time coaching. I do monthly coaching with people. It depends on where they're at in their debt journey. Do they need to pay off debt? Are they at the point where they're ready to buy? Do they understand what house hacking is? And then basically I'll walk you through everything that the realtor should do, but doesn't do when you get that house under, like the investors that I took with me to Ohio. I've been walking them through day by day. We have to do this with the inspection. Did you get a water bill? Did you do this? So it covers a lot of that stuff to get you into that first door or second door. They're buying a multifamily, so they're going to go from 0 to 2 doors here next month when they close. And those are things that I cover, and I'll be honest with you. And if you're not willing to do the work or pay off the credit card, or, there was one that I was going back and forth. I'm like, they had tiny student loans, and I'm like, you guys just need to pay this off. They're like, it might get written off. And we went round and round, and I'm like, guys, do you want a house, or do you want to wait and hope that these get written off? And it was like, and I'm talking like $800. I'm like, just pay these. Right. I'm like, just pay this off and get this off. And she's like, holy crap, that just raised my score 64 points. I'm like, I know it's $800 is not worth it. Just pay it off and be done with it. Right. So I cover all that kind of stuff with people.
Are you a realtor?
I am not.
Yeah. So I started like you did, where I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm helping friends. I'm walking, and they begged me to be their real estate agent. And I reluctantly did it. And now I love it, because then I talk real estate all day to everyone, and it pays much. Well, I don't know what you're charging for coaching, but it was easier because if someone has a realtor, they seem to be a little bit more serious about investing in real estate.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But consider that, because if you're already generating business off these off-market deals and stuff, the deals that aren't for you, you could. Well, I guess you said you do some reselling. Is that like wholesaling when you say you pass up the deals?
Reselling, like I resell merchandise. I flip merchandise through eBay. I have an online closeout store. So that's why I'm out at the flea markets. I'll resell, and I've funded deals through reselling. So
that has nothing to do with real estate.
So but I bought real estate with it.
Okay. So you where do you get this merchandise that you resell?
Out of the flea market. I have a bunch of wholesalers that I work with out in Dallas is a great central hub for the country where stores will dump stuff. So I go to wholesalers and we'll buy pallets of bras, we'll buy pallets of makeup, we'll buy pallets of backpacks, and it's just about timing. And certain shades of makeup sell for certain prices because they're discontinued. And I've funded deals that way through reselling.
And you resell on eBay?
I do. And a little bit on Amazon.
Okay. Are you the frugal gay on those places as well?
I am. It's actually cheap closeout. It's my resale business on eBay and Amazon. Yeah.
Well, we'll check that out. Cheap closeouts online. Thanks for joining the House of AC. I definitely want to have you back. I want to hear where this story takes you. You're doing it in a fresh, new way. It's really exciting to hear that there's not one path for everyone to reach financial independence. So congrats to you. Definitely. And congrats to doing it in your 30s, man. That you're inspiration.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.